Hey guys, this is Dripping with Thoughts. I actually just recorded this video and I had my mic set up wrong and none of the audio came out. So this is kind of a reshoot. Video went kind of long too. I'll try to bring it down a little bit shorter. Basically, what I want to talk about was this strange phenomenon that I became aware of about 2 weeks ago, and I noticed. I actually live at a busy house, a lot of traffic outside of my house, and sometimes I'll just look outside and I'll be watching people, and I've noticed lately that people suddenly realize that they're being watched. It's very strange, and it's not something you pick up right away, but after going onto my window just randomly a couple times, it's like, whoa. Like somebody would be walking from the train station and there's a subway stop right across from my house, and they'll be walking I'm watching them for 2 steps, and by the 3rd step I see them just completely turn around, like looking around, like they know they're being watched. It's like whoa. And on other occasions people will look, I'm peeking through the shutters just to look outside, and people will be looking up at the house. I'm like, what the? And I've had people say, oh, that's just coincidence, it's a house that some people look at. And in my experience, there's just been a few times too many that just puts it a little bit past coincidence. One time this girl was running by the house, and then all of a sudden she whipped around a full 180 and was looking around. It's really strange. So I did some research on this phenomenon of people feeling like they're being watched, and there's not a lot of stuff out there. It's surprisingly, for something that I think most people have experienced, the thought of the thought and the feeling of being watched. There just isn't that much. And this paper I found actually talks about all the research that's been done over, in history. And there was a few papers a long time ago, but it was just very dispersed, and there wasn't very much studies actually done on this. It seems that science just kind of wants to stay away from it because it's kind of unexplainable, and it goes into pseudoscience of psychics and telekinesis, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But there has been research done in labs and tests where they'll do studies where they'll have somebody sit down and they'll have somebody randomly decide to look at them or not look at them from behind at an angle, and the person writes down whether they feel like they're being watched or not. There's been some other tests like that, but they've always been conclusive that it's a 60 or 70% that people know. People can tell when they're actually being watched. It might be more than that. I'm not sure on the exact figures. I actually read this paper about 2 weeks ago, but I was just like, wow, this is crazy. This is something that actually exists. Scientists kind of verified it, but they've verified it just enough to step away from it, which I always find very odd, that science could verify something to a point where it just is scared of it and just okay, we're not dealing with this anymore. The paper also talks about some other things, and this is one of the things that really hit it off for me was when detectives are training, they tell them, private investigators, things like that, they say that when you're following someone, don't stare at the back of their head. Don't basically look at them as little as possible when you're following them. Only when necessary to see where they're going, but try not to just constantly look at them. And when I read that, because basically you're talking about this phenomenon of being able to feel it, and I've seen this firsthand, and I've had some friends feel this firsthand, where if you're staring at someone or if you're looking at them from behind, they'll suddenly whip around and they'll look right at you. And I don't think I mentioned it in this video, but that's happened to me a lot of times. A lot of times you'll be sitting there and you aren't even thinking about it, but you suddenly look up and there's somebody looking right at you. You're like, whoa. Now, most of the time you don't think anything of it. After you hear about this stuff, you will notice it a lot more, because you don't even think about looking up. It's just subconsciously you look up and it's like, oh, there's somebody looking at me. That was kind of strange, but you almost find it normal that you looked up because they were looking at you. It's this weird thing that we all kind of are used to, but no one ever acknowledges. But going back to the detective, but it's not just detectives and things like that. It's hunters, because it's hunters, snipers, photographers. A lot of people have verified that, you know, even long distances, a sniper can tell that suddenly that person knows they're being watched. Hunters can experience the same thing with animals, and apparently this phenomenon works with animals. You can tell you're being watched by animals. That's why some people were skeptical of this, say, oh, well, I've felt like I'm being watched in the woods. Well, that's true, because you could still be watched in the woods. There's still animals out in the woods. So this obviously would be a trait that a very useful trait for evolution. You know, the ability to know when you're being watched by any animal or anyone is obviously a great survival trait. So I can obviously say that that would be one of the top things that would be kept in the genome. But yeah, hunters experience this. All these things experience this, and it's a crazy phenomenon. One of the other things I've been thinking about lately is quantum physics, which I'm gonna post some videos down below. One in particular blew my mind, and it's about how, well, there's a lot of weird things that go on in quantum physics. Particles can be in multiple places at once. Particles can have weird connections with particles that can be far, far away. They've been doing these tests with these state changes, and no matter how far away they are, if they're connected, they can. It's crazy. Some of the stuff that happens at this quantum level that we really don't know that much about. And in my mind, thinking about quantum physics, I think about this crazy underlying web of everything being connected in kind of this random way, like everything's kind of shaking and moving. And I've been thinking about it, linking it to this being watched phenomenon. I was like, what if our brains can actually are kind of quantum, where they can kind of understand this underlying web of these microscopic changes and actually use it to like feel things that are like farther away from us. And I know that sounds crazy, but usually like magic or telekinesis or psychic powers, obviously you usually just blow those things off, like, okay, that's impossible. But the idea is that if there is this underlying web that kind of connects everything around you at this very small level, if our brain could even pick up on a little bit of that to tell when other living things were around or things like that, I mean, that would be a huge survival advantage. I mean, that would make it evolve into us so fast that and the truth is, a lot of animals have this. I mean, it's not just humans. It's a lot of animals know when they're being watched. It's pretty amazing. It's just that no one really knows why. So I've been, basically, this is the first thought of the ramble number 1 is, what are your thoughts on this idea that our minds can work at the quantum level? I mean, the truth is, they don't even know how our minds work. They don't know why we sleep. I mean, they do have some ideas and some theories, and there are some ideas floating around, but you always hear about that. You always hear like, well, we don't really know why we sleep. Our mind organizes things, and, you know, they don't really know how memories are stored. They can put ink in, they can see what parts of your brain are working at certain times when you're thinking about certain things, but they're still like fucking monkeys banging two sticks together. Like, how did this work? Like, they still really don't know how these things work. But my theory is that possibly brain cells might be able to somehow work with this quantum world and give us this sixth sense in a way. This sixth sense. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about for this. There was some other thing I came across that was saying that which I didn't really get to verify, but they were saying that the pituitary gland, which is I guess in the center of our brain, if I'm thinking of the right thing, but I came across something that talked about how that was kind of like our third eye, and it actually has cones and is shaped like our eyes. I looked at some medical pictures of it. It didn't look like our eyes at all to me, but I thought that was interesting. This idea that we have this gland that kind of works like our eyes, and that's how we like have our dreams, or how we can see things in our heads, our third eye in a way. That was kind of interesting. I didn't really throw that into my theory. That was just a kind of a side note. But all right, that's my first video. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is kind of random and kind of a ramble, and I kind of mumble a lot, but yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Just want to throw these ideas out there, and I'll catch you guys later.